Mike Ekeler. Mike Ekeler is sad or happy or
we're at 11:48. So like,
oh wow, yeah.
Let's hit that.
Yeah, this is going quick.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun.
Are we? Yeah, okay. Anyway,
so our head coach,
I gotta stop.
Our head coach, he's been making the rounds. You know, he's going on different shows.
He loves podcasts. Big podcaster. He is a podcaster.
One of them was contractually obligated. Sports Nightly, by all means, do that.
You should.
Okay, you should.
Yeah. Casey coming on the pod soon. FYI.
Yeah, okay.
Kyle Crooks. Yeah.
Head coach making the rounds. And one of the topics that comes up is Mike Ekeler's eventual departure. He's gone, right? Hashtag he gone.
He's gone.
Matt Rule says some things about the situation. You can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. How special teams, you should do it for the unit, for the team, and not for the glory of special teams or something like that. Okay. But this loss of Mike Ekeler, some people are just like, kind of like, almost like F him, that he's leaving. And it's just like, not a big deal. Special teams fell off at the end of the year, which admittedly, I feel like it did get a little worse. There were some injuries that happened, but some people are just kind of ho-humming this. And I'm thinking that they're nuts for ho-humming this. What do you think?
I'm just concerned. First of all, those people are wrong. Anybody who says this is not a big deal is so wrong. Mike Ekeler is the best coach on the staff. Like
by far.
Yeah. Like Matt Rule included. It's Mike Ekeler.
By far.
It's not close. So anybody acting like this is not a big deal is stupid. What concerns me is something that came out maybe a week ago. And obviously it's a separate situation, but it was regarding Dylan Raiola's departure, where it was said that there was no real effort to retain Dylan. The university was ready to move in its own direction. And that scares me because, like, I understand, if we knew he was done, like, why fight it? But with Ekeler, this is kind of a situation where I'm questioning, like, did we really put in our best effort to retain a guy that, frankly, again, people talk about, like, oh, it's just special teams, ho-hum, whatever.
Yeah.
That
won us 3 games this year.
It should have been an incredibly public thing how much effort Nebraska was doing to retain a guy like this.
I think it was the opposite. Matt Rule publicly went on a podcast and was already preparing for him to move on.
I mean, he said on Sports Nightly if and when.
If and when, pretty much.
Yeah.
And he keeps using this foxhole reference, which I think is very odd and ironic. But he's like, well, if you're in the foxhole, but you're partially in and partially out, that's his problem. It's not my problem.
How about pull the motherfucker back in the foxhole? Like, don't let him be halfway out.
Mike Ekeler is gone. Now, there's questions about, okay, does Mike Ekeler want to coach a position group on defense? He's always coached linebackers and special teams. And at Nebraska, Matt Rule just wanted him to coach special teams. It's just very odd. And Mike Ekeler is a guy that doesn't like to stay places for very long periods of time.
Can I say something about that real quick?
Please do, yeah.
Please do.
That's garbage.
That's garbage.
Stop. I know that as somebody that has a connection to Mike Ekeler, that is garbage. That thought process that he's jumping ship because of
linebackers coaches
it's this narrative that he just doesn't stay in a place for a long time. It's because if you look at every single job he's had, it's been because he's moved up.
Yeah.
And at Tennessee, he was at 4 years. And he had a lot of success. And it took a lot for Nebraska to take him away from Tennessee.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I don't want to push back.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
But I will. It's something I texted these guys is that Ekeler has had 10 jobs in the last 17 years.
That is right. Yeah.
Has he moved up 10 times?
Well, I would say
definitely some lateral moves.
So there were some lateral moves. Like you look back at, he was part of the staff at Lane Kiffin at USC.
Yeah.
And I've heard so let me give you guys a backstory and everybody watching. Because I don't think Eck would mind me saying this. There was back in March. It was the week after the Michigan game, and I tweeted this out, and I got kind of ridiculed for it. Because I didn't say anything initially, because a lot of our job is reputation, right? And keeping things I don't want to say quiet or keeping things from the public, but more so like it's
not your story to tell.
It's not our story to tell,
yeah.
and we're not going to do this and stuff. And Eck's incredible. So it was after the Michigan game, And you remember that Nebraska's special teams that week did not do great against Michigan.
Missed field goal.
They had a missed field goal. They allowed the big return. Or was it a blocked punt, guys? You might have remember. Was it a blocked punt or Nebraska? No. It was Ja'Cory fielded it inside the 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was Ja'Cory fielded it inside the 5, and that was the situation there. The next week was a bye week, and I ended up actually. I was flying on vacation. I just took a weekend off. It's a weekend trip down to Texas, and Ekeler was actually on the flight.
Oh, nice.
And anyway, so what happened essentially was it was the most bizarre of things. And this is the way the world just works sometimes. I booked my flight through a credit card, and so there I didn't want to pay for seats. And so I just had it randomly select me a seat. Well, you get screwed and you get in the middle seat, and I'm not the smallest, width guy. And so I was like, screw this. I hate this middle seat or whatever. Well, I saw Ekeler was waiting in the terminal, but at a different gate. And I was like, okay, he must be recruiting, right? He ends up getting on the flight. He ends up sitting next to me. And I introduced myself because I had never met him before. I had never met him. Like I had seen him at press conferences and stuff, and we'd asked him questions, but I'm not a newspaper guy. So like a writer. So I don't need to have this like real close connection to these guys. However, I introduced myself, and I like put my AirPods in and was going to be ready, like chill. Like I don't need to bother him or whatever.
You don't be that guy.
The last thing you want is,
guy.
hey man, Mike,
so you guys just lost to Michigan. Like, tell me what happened and stuff. But Eck was very, very forthcoming with just a lot of thoughts and stuff. And he asked me about like my time at Nebraska, and knew that I was kind of newer to the business. I'm 5 years into it now and stuff. And I ended up asking him like, all right, so like what happened against Michigan? Like, let's talk about special teams. What's your number one priority coming to Nebraska? Why come to Nebraska? And here's what he said about Nebraska. He goes, I could have stayed at Tennessee. And he said, I had other opportunities elsewhere as well, which I cannot translate. But he said that I will say this, there were some very notable legendary coaches that were trying to get Mike Ekeler services the last couple of years from Tennessee. And he stayed at Tennessee. And when he said that Josh Heupel said, whatever you want, man, to be here. And he said, no, look, I got to go to Nebraska. Like I already told him I'm coming. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And he said that when I asked him, I go, why did you want to take Nebraska's job? Like, they were bad on special teams last year. And he said, Nick, I wanted to show that I could come to the place that they were the worst team in the country on special teams and transform it in 1 year to being the best. And he goes, we're not there yet. He said, we got a lot of work to do. And he said, but this is why I'm here. And he's like, we're going to build this into a long-standing special teams department. And so then I asked him, like, what's the number one stat that you look for to see if your special teams is good? And he said, net punting. He said, if we're top 5 in the country in net punting, that's where we want to be. And so through all of that, I say all this to say, guys, one of the most badass things I've ever had with a coach is I asked him about the Michigan stuff. And he said that he watched the previous 3 years of film on Michigan before that game. And not once did they run the coverage that they ran against Ja'Cory Barney on that punt. And he said, that's why he's like, but also, why would I take the ball out of the hands of one of our best skill guys?
Right.
He said, why would I tell him not to catch the ball and run with it? And he said, that just doesn't make sense. And then he goes, Nick, next week we play Michigan State. And he goes, if they end up running a rugby style punt to the right, he goes, I guarantee you we fucking block that thing. And so with that, he was at that time, he was like, all right, be chill. Like, don't say that. Don't don't go talk about
Keep
that.
that to yourself.
And he's like, but I guarantee you we blocked that thing. And what happened next week?
Lo and behold,
they ran a rugby style punt and they blocked it, returned it for a
And they
touchdown.
talked about it too.
And I ended up texting Eck that night. And I said, Eck, I said, you called it on the flight last week. I said, that's badass.
yeah,
And he said, we're just trying to work hard here.
we're just trying to
That's
work hard here.
And so I don't want, that's why, like, because of that. And I know maybe, I don't know if you'll clip that. I don't know. But like at the end of the day, that's why I don't buy into this notion of like, he's just job hopping. This was one of the first places, you mentioned it. This is one of the first places that he has not coached a position.
Yeah.
I think that there were simply, I think it's okay to say this. I think he looked at some of the position groups this year and looked at the output or lack of output.
Yeah.
And goes, I've put 20 plus guys in the league at the positions that Nebraska was struggling at this year. And that goes back to what we just talked about at the start of the show, identifying, figure out who are your best guys, whether that's coaches, players, support staff, whatever. You got to identify the right people for the jobs. And I think Nebraska misidentified.
Well, that's the tough part with that is, okay, so and I'm all for this, but like, does Matt Rule fire Rob Dvorak? Does Matt Rule not hire Manning? Like,
yeah,
what I'm assuming it was the Manning thing, the outside linebackers type thing, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things.
There was an opening, and I assume he probably wanted to throw his cap in on that, and that it didn't work out.
I think that. Well, I will say this. I would have belief that there was no miscommunication in the fact that Ekeler believed he should have been coaching a position group, and Rule was aware of that.
Okay, yeah,
and we're talking after week 3 of the year.
So Adam Halperin, our pal.
I love Adam. Adam's the GOAT.
Adam comes in with $20, says when Rule got on Ekeler for getting too excited during the sidelines or on the sidelines was very telling of which coach is worth keeping, and it's the assistant that brings fire.
Can I say something about that also?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to only be the one talking.
No,
I want to hear your guys' thoughts.
We invited you on our show.
I understand that. But I did not read too much. I urge Husker fans not to read too much into the whole, like, I don't want to hug him on the sidelines. Like, because Eck is wild, man. Like, Eck is crazy, right? And in the moment, like, we've all been like blindsided. Like, yeah, you get pretty pissed. Like, you know, so I would not be, I would not read in too much to that piece. However, I think that you can read into the piece about more so of how many coaches on the staff outwardly and maybe inwardly without us knowing, we know challenge Rule. That's what I would say. That part is more alarming to me. Because I sit there and I think to myself, you have to know that you're not the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
And egos run wild in you guys know this in college sports and college athletics, especially when you're talking about contracts and things like that. Egos run wild. And it's how can you contain your ego for the betterment of the program? And I think there's multiple guys on the staff. I think there's this is not like just a Matt Rule thing, because I think this is a multiple guys and multiple people issue.
So something that comes to mind. Have you seen the movie Casino?
I have not.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. There's a scene. Robert De Niro is basically running this casino, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he gets a blueberry muffin. Okay. And he looks at someone else's blueberry muffin, who their muffin has a lot more blueberries in it than his. So he goes back to the kitchen and he says, I want this amount of blueberries in each muffin.
In every muffin.
And the chef's like, do you have any idea how much time that's going to take? I don't care. Put the same amount of blueberries in each muffin. And so I'm thinking about this.
That's crazy.
And yeah, Matt Rule, I think we viewed it at the beginning of the tenure as like a positive thing. Like he knows what he wants. He's the CEO. He's going to overlook all this. Mm-hmm. I think as more time passes, and I'm speaking for myself, not NBNR as a whole, I think you're right. I think he needs to start delegating responsibilities. Like he needs to let Rob Orich run the defense instead of, hey, John Butler, I know you've never done this before, but here's the defense you're running, and I'm going to fire you later. It's just he's got to let his coaches do their thing, right?
This is why I think Nebraska struggled. The identity part, yes. As a head coach at Nebraska, you never get told no. You do not get told no. And I don't want to play the game of like comparing Nebraska football versus Nebraska basketball and hey, these things are no, they're not. They're apples and oranges, but the same philosophy can be said. I think that a quick note on basketball, folks are willing to donate more because there's more trust in that Fred and his staff will spend it in the right ways. I think football has lost a lot of that trust.
Lost a lot of grace. Yeah.
They've lost a lot of it not because they're, great. They went to back-to-back bowl games. That's great. And this isn't, I don't think that this is Nebraska fans saying, okay, well, you did that. Now you need to win more. Yeah. Results matter, but I think also the process matters. And there was a lot of, like, I think there's something to be said about Matt Rule came out in the last couple of games of the season and it got very awkward. I will happily say that. Like it got very awkward and uncomfortable, I think, with the fan base and just around it, right, in the last couple of games. But with that being said, you have your head coach talk about how you got, I never know if out physicaled is a word, but we all know what it means.
Yeah, sure.
But like how Nebraska got out physicaled in the last couple of games of the year. But then what do you do at the end of the year? You extend your strength and conditioning staff and you give them raises to where they'll eventually make $1 million to be a top 5 strength staff. Well, for what?
But you're not allowed to question strength and conditioning because we don't know the ins and outs, right? We're ignorant.
100%.
You can't question that.
And so that's where I think that there's a lot of just the process piece of it. Yeah, the results show, and I think Nebraska fans are smart enough to know that the results might take time, and there's been patience, and then there's been Nebraska fans, and there are 12 weeks of the regular season. What are you doing the remaining 40 of the year? And I think that's the part that more fans have lost belief and trust in than even the 12 weeks of when you're playing games.
What concerns me is for years now, 3 and change, we've referred to Matt Rule as the CEO type of coach.
Yep.
When we talk about CEOs, they, to me, have like 2 main roles. One of them being identify and elevate talent. That's a big role.
Sure.
The other is, Jared, you mentioned it, delegate. Like, I don't want my CEO to be hands-on, but we hear over the course of these last 2 seasons that he is still maybe like kind of backhand controlling that defense. We have questions about whether he's messing with the offense.
Maybe.
Why are you hiring these people if you don't believe in their talent? And why are you not just delegating after you've identified and elevated?
But I feel like he kind of walks both sides of that. So he said, I trust my life with Holgerson, right? And then, by bowl practices, everything, he puts his hat on backwards and, I've had the mess that I had to clean up from the previous staff. Finally threw former head coach Scott Bleep under the bus, right?
He's done that. He did that this past week as well.
Yes, did it again.
Yep.
So he has kept that
has
hard.
been such a switch.
It's been in his back pocket.
So 2 things. One that I'll say about with Mike is that where it started to shift for me, and I have to look at, I try my best. I grew up in Nebraska, a Nebraska fan, and I've started to honestly, guys, shift over these last 5 years of like away from fan and let's look at this realistically.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's because of the conversations that we're privy to and things like that, which we're fortunate for. And so you have to be diplomatic and you have to be realistic. Where I think it shifted a lot for me as just an observer of the program is when he brought in Phil Snow and Dana. Now, you needed to bring in somebody on that offense. First off, I think it was telling Marcus Satterfield was never supposed to be the offense coordinator. Like, let's just remember that. I think that's something that people forget. Is that Nebraska got denied on a couple of times on potential offense coordinators, so they moved Satterfield into that role, and then Dana Holgerson. But let's not forget, Nebraska's defense was doing just fine, but they decided to bring in Phil Snow anyway, and that started the exodus of Tony White. And that started the uncomfortability, I'd say, of the entire thing. So that's step one. I interrupted you, so go ahead and keep going. But that was kind of the point where I think things really started to shift.
To your point, that is the basis of this entire podcast for almost 5 years now, which is you need to stop looking at it as a fan and you need to start looking at it realistically. Look at the facts.
Look at the facts. We're going to present the facts. Stop. And this is my resolution for 2026. I'm not going to tell a fan how to fan, because that's my thing. Don't tell me how to fan. Don't tell me how I'm supposed to feel about the way this program is behaving, the way that we're handling it or mishandling coaches on the staff, right?
Yeah.
But on the flip side, don't tell me how I'm supposed to feel. I'm not going to tell them how they're supposed to feel. Now, we talk about Matt Rule, and he's kept that former head coach Scott card in his back pocket for so long.
Been saving it.
And at the bowl practices, Matt Rule turns into Matt, puts his hat on backwards like a fucking doofus.
Coach Matt.
And then says that he hasn't had the time because he had to fix the mess that when he came in here.
Which is a complete switch from what
it was before. These are my guys.
Don't forget, that's what actually got a lot of Husker fans on board from the get-go. Was because you just got done hearing from a guy in Scott, what are we doing, Bleep?
Yeah, don't say that on the pod.
You can say if you refer to him as a player, we can say the player.
It was so funny. I don't want to deviate. It's Scott Frost story. But anyway,
Scott Frost,
You were watching.
As a quarterback.
As a coach, sorry, or as a former coach.
Yeah.
Oh,
You,
yeah.
you
So is
were
that a bleep?
Yeah,
Yeah.
former head coach
Okay.
Scott is a bleep.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
you were looking at what was happening in Boulder, and Matt Rule comes in and says, "Nope, these are all my guys."
Well, yeah, and that's the point, because you just got done with a former head coach, Scott. Thank you. That comes in and talks about how the cupboards were bare and how it's going to take time and things like that, and they needed wholesale changes. Well, then Matt Rule steps in and goes, "No, these are my guys. Like, we're in Nebraska."
Yep.
And everybody was like, "Wow, how refreshing is this?"
Yep.
This is complete 180. Like,
Turn
here
the
we go.
page.
It's like we have an adult running the show. And then lo and behold, when once again it starts to get uncomfortable,
Yep.
what do you all of a sudden hear? Well, hey, you gotta understand, because it's
We took on a mess.
isn't it wild?
And now I have the time to coach a position group, and I can really focus on the defensive line. And I can watch this defensive line get absolutely boat raced and throttled
You know how
by
you handle
Utah.
that? You bring in a good coach.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I
Indeed.
think people make too much of the hat thing. Did he look dumb? Kinda. Yeah.
No, I don't.
I didn't
I don't.
care.
He looked like a fucking
I didn't
dumbass.
care.
No,
But so
I
you
think
know,
it was ridiculous.
and you also know exactly what you're doing when you come out
Yeah.
like that. That's the part that bothers me the most is you can't sit up and act, and not that Matt did this. You cannot sit there and act naive about, oh, well, he just wore his hat backwards. Like, it's no big, no, you know exactly what you were doing
Yes.
when you walk out of the tunnel. And then to see your team lose by 22. And guys, I was at that game, and it was
shit pushed in.
it was bad. It was
Yeah.
bad. And that is, I don't think very few people expected Nebraska to win. And I was one of those people that did not expect Nebraska to win.
Mhm.
But you got outcoached, and your staff got outcoached by an interim head coach at that time.
Yeah.
And that's not the first time this has happened. And
This year.
and, yeah,
This
yeah,
year.
yeah. So I just think you know exactly what you were doing. And then the whole decision to stay in Vegas for a couple extra days. There's a lot there. I will say this. I know for a fact that they thought that they had they knew before it was public that they had Kenny Minchie at least committed. And so I think, I don't know, maybe this is all me just speculating and
Kicked his feet
spitballing.
back a little bit.
This is
Got
it's
comfortable.
just me spitballing. Like, okay, yeah, we got our quarterback. This is okay. Like, we're good.
I would like to think he was
And then what happened?
Right.
but I would like to think I know he's not he's lost the benefit of the doubt largely, but if I'm going to be generous to him, the whole Vegas thing, staying an extra couple days, I would like to think he was talking to or visiting with Tanner Vibabule, the Army Air Force offered quarterback. It's almost as if we should have offered Jeff Monken the head coaching job, but I hope he's just not in Vegas, like just chilling. I hope he's visiting that
I think
quarterback.
you're giving him too much better than
Maybe.
Well, where did Calandria transfer from?
UNLV, but he didn't know.
He was not on
the
the
he was not in the
because
conversation.
He was not in the conversation at all. He's even told you that.
it was a
Sports
last
Nightly.
it was a last second kind of thing.
He
after
didn't even
Minchie.
want. He
Again.
told you on Sports Nightly. He wasn't even on his list of guys,
Right.
and somebody had to talk him into. Remember, this sounds familiar, right?
Oh God.
Somebody had to talk him into bringing in
Mike Ekeler.
Calandria.
Hello, Mike Ekeler.
Yes, and then somebody Will Compton had to talk him into interviewing the best coach that ends up being on the staff at Nebraska under the Matt Rule regime.
Yeah.
He doesn't want it to come across as if the fans have an effect on him.
Right.
He
doesn't
needs-
read or listen to podcasts, even though he blocked our podcast. Weird.
He
Weird.
did?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We got blocked. But he doesn't read or listen to anything.
That's tough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've never tweeted the guy or
okay.
anything.
But
It is what it is.
It's
I don't care.
like it's,
Wild, right?
I'm not
It's-
going to say it's a badge of honor, but it's like it's just very telling. Like
That's
Really?
incredible.
we post positive shit all the time. It's not. I don't know. I don't
That's
know.
funny.
It's
I
just.
don't know.
It's very. I think it's pathetic. But go on, Connor.
The
Sorry.
most telltale sign that fans do impact Rule and actually, I think, live rent free in his head
Yes.
is that after 3 full seasons at the University of Nebraska, you start talking about our former head coach, Scott.
Yeah.
3 full seasons,
That's
and now you want to assign blame?
yeah.
You know why? Because
He kept
he
it in his back
sees-
pocket.
He sees the writing on the wall. Those
2020
walls
okay,
are
so-
getting closer.
So can I?
By the way, we do have new merch.
Yeah, we do have new merch.
NBNR.
Whoa.
Heard at brandgoods.com.
How
You can
about-
get all of our stuff.